welcome back to the program. Today, the nation bids farewell to one of its most consequential and enigmatic leaders, Muhammadu Buhari, former president and former military head of state. Earlier, he was laid to rest in his hometown of Daura, Katsina State. The northern, indeed Nigeria, reflects on a man whose name became synonymous with discipline, national duty, and a unique kind of leadership. From the battlefields of the Civil War to the corridors of power in Nasarok, former President Buhari's legacy is etched in decades of Nigeria's political evolution. Former President Buhari prioritized Africa, especially West Africa, in line with Nigeria's traditional foreign policy doctrine. He played active role in ECOWAS mediating a crisis in countries like the Gambia, during Yahya Jammeh's refusal to step down, and Mali following coups. He advocated for continental cooperation on security, trade, and anti-corruption. Late President Buhari positioned himself as a champion of anti-corruption on the global stage. He was appointed the AU's anti-corruption champion in 2018, worked with foreign governments to recover looted funds, including $322 million from Switzerland, which we call Abacha loot. Tonight, we're joined by Nigerian diplomats appointed by President Buhari as an ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to Burundi to reflect on the life, the leadership, and the lasting imprint of Muhammadu Buhari on the North and the nation at large. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Olajimoke. Good evening to Nigeria.
Good evening to you. Second time of us having a conversation, with you in less than a week. Crucial moments in the history of the country. But let's start off with how you perceive, as someone appointed by the president, how did you personally receive the news of his passing? What kind of leader was he behind closed doors in private conversations or diplomatic briefings?
Well, thank you so very much for having me once again, Olajimoke. It's with deep sense of loss that a lot of us, that worked with the late president received the news of his passing on Sunday evening. Buhari was not just a common leader. There was something extraordinary about him with the way and manner that he championed his leadership. It is one man that a lot of Nigerians, have got different experiences and accounts that they could give of him, depending on which side of the divide that you are on. But the truth of the matter remains that he's a very disciplined leader. He's someone that caught his trade with, a lot of positive attributes. He's one politician that commands the respect and followership of people without necessarily even giving them anything or having anything at stake. People just loved President Buhari. And of course, he also, on the other hand, quite a lot of people will also differ on these attributes that I've mentioned. But clearly, as someone that was appointed by him, I can analyze Mr. President or the late president from the perspective of his foreign policy. The president that just passed on was a president that was very clear as to what he wanted to do with Nigeria's foreign policy. The summary of the foreign policy under President Buhari is foreign policy for national development. He didn't differ from what traditionally Nigeria has always been about with respect to foreign policy. It's always been about Nigeria, its neighbors, Africa. So technically, the Afrocentric nature of our diplomacy and foreign policy over the years was actually sustained under his era. And there are quite a lot of significant things that happened under President Buhari's era when you want to have an overview of his foreign policy. You can look at it from the perspective of national security and counterterrorism. Shortly after he came to power, we had quite a lot of challenge with, the terrorism and Boko Haram sects taking charge of Nigeria's, some of our territories. And what he basically did the moment he stepped and he took over power was to have an international collaboration that allowed for assistance, to Nigeria in fighting Boko Haram. You remember the famous, Tucano jet deal that he had with America just to be able to help him counter that challenge at the time. You can also look at it from the point of view of his economic and trade diplomacy. He was very, very clear as to what he had wanted to do. And, you can also look at it from the perspective of anti-corruption diplomacy. In 2018, he was named the African Union anti-corruption champion, And beyond that, each of his engagements internationally, whether with the G7, with the African Union, with the United Nations, at every particular time, President Buhari had the opportunity of engaging at international level, whether bilateral or multilateral. He always talked about the recovery of the loot because he believed that the West always cooperated with the people that were looting our funds because he always, there was always this famous question, as to how he responded to, the quote and unquote fantastically corrupt jab. And he said, as far as he's concerned, he wants the money back. He cooperated with the U.S., with Switzerland, with the United Arab Emirates to try as much as possible to recover some of the looted funds back to the country. You can also look at it from the point of view of his Afrocentric nature of his diplomacy. He was always very clear that Nigeria is a leader in the continent and must take leadership role in most of the things that we did at the time.
Absolutely,
you can also look at it from the point of view of non-alignment and sovereignty.
Let's stay on that, Ambassador.
Yes.
In your assessment of his impact on West African stability, especially through ECOWAS diplomacy, was his role truly consequential? In your view, did Nigeria's leadership role in Africa grow or decline under President Buhari?
Well, I would say that it grew because the president had the leadership role in ECOWAS. And in addition to that, there were also a couple of times that there were military intervention. There was the famous Gambian challenge of 2017, where someone won an election and lost an election and didn't want to leave power and all of that. So in my view, I think that the dominance of Nigeria within the sub-region under Buhari's leadership, actually, I think that it grew, under his leadership. You can always see that he was always willing to assist. There were lots of cooperation. In fact, even helping set up the multinational joint task force, that will actually help address the issue of fighting terrorism and some of the Lake Chad Basin issues that we had at the time. He had the very super collaboration with Niger, with Benin, with Cameroon, and some of our neighbors to try to be at the frontal, to try to provide leadership to be able to address the challenges that were with the region at the time that he was president. So I think he did a very great job, at that. He always, extended hands of cooperation. A lot of Nigerians questioned, why we had to extend the rail line into Maradi, why we did certain things that we did at the time. But this is the nature of Nigeria's foreign policy, where we must pay attention to ourselves and also pay attention to our neighbors, because you will not be able to have peace if your neighbors are challenged security-wise. So I think that's the reason why he felt that having a very good bilateral relationship with the neighbors, and he was very tactical and very strategic with the way he related with our neighbors, because you'll find out that in the last regime, he tried to appoint ambassadors that were retired service chiefs to be able to man the ambassadorial positions with countries that are surrounding Nigeria. That way, you will get some level of, intelligence, security, and all of that. People that were experienced enough to be able to champion, ambassadorial roles across our neighbors. So I will actually analyze it as someone that did extremely very well with respect to the promotion of leadership of Nigeria within the sub-region under his leadership.
But of course, the big question has been how sustainable are or were these external security partnerships. But we'll come back to that in a moment. For you, what expectations did President Buhari place on ambassadors and diplomats representing Nigeria abroad? Was there a defining moment during your time? as ambassador that reviewed, something unique about his leadership style or vision.
Well, there's so much, to talk about. First is that, the president is someone that obviously championed Nigeria's leadership. And you can also look at the fact that under his leadership, quite a lot of Nigerians were appointed into strategic positions across the world. You will know that under his leadership, that was when Amina Mohammed was appointed the Deputy UN Secretary General. Under his leadership, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was also appointed as the DG of WTO. Akinwumi Adesina was also appointed as the president with the support of late President Muhammadu Buhari. Akinwumi Adesina was appointed as the president of the African Development Bank. Benedict Orama was appointed as the president of Afro-Exim. Mohamed Barakindo was also appointed as the OPEC Secretary General. You had Tijani Mohammed as the UN, holding another role within the United Nations. You also had Ambassador Bankole Adoyi as the Commissioner for the African Union in charge of political affairs, peace and conflict resolution. You had quite a lot of Nigerians were holding very strategic offices, across the world at multilateral level under President Buhari's foreign policy and under his leadership. And I honestly do not know between 1999 and now, under any leader, that we have had that much number of Nigerians holding those positions, those strategic positions across the length and breadth of the world. It's actually very, impressive if you ask me. So President Buhari was very clear on what he wanted to do with security. He also was very clear on what he wanted to do with anti-corruption drive. And once he had the opportunity, he talked about stolen funds, he talked about recovery, he talked about the kind of cooperation that is required. And indeed, some of these countries across the world, he had agreements, bilateral agreements, that he executed with them in trying to ensure that they cooperated with Nigerians with issues relating to extradition and repatriation of looted funds. And if you look at it, I will, I judge his foreign policy as one of his strongest points while he led this country. He engaged, quite a lot. He was also the COVID champion. Nigeria had quite a lot of awards, with the way and manner that he championed COVID, the response towards COVID. Quite a lot of perspective at the time was that as soon as COVID hits Africa, and of course a populated nation like Nigeria, that everybody was going to die and all of that. But Nigeria's response to COVID-19 under President Buhari's leadership was super. He was also very great with respect to responding to issues like immigration and climate change. There are enormous respect that he commanded, as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that's why I'm not surprised the kind of tributes that are being poured across the length and breadth of the world. I saw a tribute by former President Barack Obama talking about President Buhari and his honesty. I saw a tribute from Okonjo-Iweala. I saw a tribute from quite a lot of people, and one that actually struck me, someone that they interviewed today in BBC House of Service this morning was saying that, we trust Buhari, even if he didn't do anything, you are sure that he's not going to steal. So he cut out his leadership style for himself, and I feel that that also gave him the required respect across, the length and breadth of the world, that he stood as a mark, he stood as a reference point, he stood as someone that was providing leadership that was not just Nigeria-centric, but was also is also Afro-centric within the period that this lasted. And honestly, the world will miss President Buhari. And what happened today, I believe that everybody that was watching could see that Daura played host to the who is who in Nigeria's leadership, and quite a lot of African leaders are also sending in their tributes, including I think the president of Guinea-Bissau was also on ground today to be able to pay his last respect. And even during his leadership, he was very close to a lot of African presidents. He had a special relationship with the former president of Senegal. He was extremely very close with the president of Gambia. He was extremely very close with the former president that was ousted during the, ousted in Niger Republic. Quite a lot of African presidents actually respected President Muhammadu Buhari. It's actually indeed a very big loss to the nation. And we pray that for the repose of his soul. And, quite a lot of people that worked with him will understand this and attest to the fact that he's a man of honesty. He's a man that has, played this role for Nigeria. He did quite a lot of work, especially in the area of foreign policy. A lot of people will come and analyze what has happened with respect to the domestic policy, but having played a major role under his administration and having been his appointee with respect to diplomacy and international relations, be rest assured that we are accounting and we're saying that he did a great job while he led the nation on that front.
All right. And also going back to, his approach to external security partnerships, because you hear critics say, this approach or partnerships were quite over-reliant on foreign aid and military support. And like you've highlighted before now, the late president strengthened the MNJTF, which was a coalition between Nigeria, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and Benin to fight Boko Haram and ISIS in West Africa. But again, how sustainable was it, Ambassador?
Well, at this point in time, leadership is a continuum. What happens is that whenever you're given the responsibility of leadership, you do your part and you leave the rest for the next person that comes to be able to continue from there. I thought it's something that he initiated. I mean, the president was, perhaps being a military general, was believed to have enough experience to handle issues relating to security. And he not only did that within the territories of Nigeria, he also tried to pass on that experience with his leadership within the sub-region. The Lake Chad Basin, I think he was the leader. He was the head of the Lake Chad Commission at that time. And not just that, his cooperation was about how do we ensure that we provide security within our territory. Because as long as you have insecurity, even with your neighbors, you are also at risk, because chances are that whatever that is happening with your neighbor is likely to spill over to your country. And he was at that forefront, engaging and negotiating and trying to set up mechanisms that will ensure that he pushed back, the terrorism issue, especially with the attack of Boko Haram at the time. So I think, he succeeded in what he did at that time. And the MNTJF, I also know that while even President Tinubu was the leader of ECOWAS, there were lots of cases that was made to ensure that the MNTJF, that's the Multinational Joint Task Force, MNJTF, was appropriately funded and equipped, so that they can actually help and find a way of assisting the sub-region in providing security, because security is a major challenge within the sub-region. And we are one of the regions in the world that is suffering from terrorism. It's not just us as ECOWAS or within the African continent, even though it's worldwide, but we also have our own share of the challenge. And the leadership of ECOWAS, both under him and even dating onto President
All right, Ambassador, quickly, because of time. I mean, you said a lot, but how should current administration, future administration, how should they build on or correct the foundation late President Buhari laid in foreign relations?
Well, what we see right now is that every administration comes in and they decide to design what they want to achieve. Under President Buhari, it was foreign policy for national development. But know that historically, our foreign policy has always been Afrocentric. It's always been about Nigeria and trying to provide leadership position in Africa. President Tinubu has also come with his 4D foreign policy thrust, talking about development, talking about diaspora development, and and the other one. So clearly, I think there is also a build-up on what President Buhari has done. Even though I know that at this point in time, a lot of work is still cut out for President Tinubu at this particular point in time. Reason being that we are also having increased challenges both within the sub-region. Before now, it was a 15-member nation states coming together as ECOWAS. Right now, 3 countries have actually moved out of it to form the Sahel states. This is a new challenge right now that this presents, So at this point in time, the challenge will vary from one administration to the other, but clearly, a lot of work that has been done at the time to try to promote Nigeria's interest internationally is what I believe that this current administration
Thank you very much for
to
speaking with us, Ambassador. The late president has been buried, but the nation still mourns, and it was very important for us to have that conversation with you. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Ambassador Elijah Onyeagba, former Nigerian ambassador to Burundi. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And may the soul of our former President Buhari rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Thank you. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. That's our package tonight. Please have a great evening.